If we were traveling back in time through 75 years of AHA history, we'd see the faces of thousands of people we've served over the decades. We'd see how each era brought new challenges: the Great Depression, World War II, the post-war boom, civil rights, the Great Recession. We'd see the dramatic evolution of AHA communities and programs. Traveling back in time, we'd witness many stories to celebrate and inspire. We'd also see times when we struggled to live up to our founding vision, and beyond those times, how we responded, how we reinvented AHA and transformed the way we work, how we became stronger. Across the arc of our history, much has changed, but the vision of our founders has endured. Our work is to open the doors to affordable housing, but more importantly, to open the doors to brighter futures. Though we can't really time travel, we can stop at this 75th anniversary milestone and view images, hear stories, and answer this question: what will we carry forward from the past into the future? Today, we'll look at 3 legacies that can guide each of us in building the future of AHA: leadership, reinvention, and vision.
Our founding story illustrates the legacy of leadership. In 1933, Atlanta and America are struggling to rise out of the Deep Depression and enter the modern age. The federal government is working on ways to solve social problems and put the American dream in everyone's reach. In the heart of Atlanta, slums are breeding disease, violence, and a vicious cycle of poverty and hopelessness. There is no housing authority to offer relief. The deplorable conditions forge an alliance between 2 unlikely partners: Charles Palmer, a wealthy white real estate magnate who owns a large block of property in downtown Atlanta, and the elderly Dr. John Hope, an influential African-American educator, founder of what would become the NAACP and president of Morehouse College and Atlanta University. Hope and Palmer are both passionate about fighting poverty in slums, and for impoverished people, opening the doors to a better future. They come up with a strategy to make housing affordable and take their case to Washington to secure federal funding. This is in the era of Jim Crow laws. A separate but equal policy segregates the races in public facilities. Hope and Palmer returned to Atlanta with funding to create 2 housing projects, one for whites, Techwood Homes, and one for African Americans, University Homes. Other cities across the country face the same problems as Atlanta, but what puts us ahead of them is the local partnership representing both public and private business interests. Because of the partnership of Hope and Palmer, the first federally funded public housing projects for whites and for African Americans in the nation are built here in Atlanta.
On November 29, 1935, President Roosevelt arrives in Atlanta to dedicate the opening of Techwood Homes. This public housing for white families is built on the site of the slum community known as Techwood Flats. The following year, University Homes opens for African Americans on the site of the Beaver Slide slums just west of downtown. An article in the University Homes neighborhood newspaper, The Tab, describes the new community this way: what was once a veritable inferno of crime, dereliction, and unhealthful environmental conditions has been transformed into a garden spot for rehabilitating disappointed and broken spirits. This example of affordable public housing is one that many other cities want to follow and Atlanta wants to expand on. In 1937, Roosevelt signs the United States Housing Bill. It establishes federal government subsidies for the construction of public housing by local housing authorities. This law paves the way for the creation of the Atlanta Housing Authority on June 11, 1938. With a resolution declaring the need for safe, affordable housing for families facing temporary financial difficulty. Charles Palmer becomes our first chairman, and ownership of Techwood Homes and University Homes later transfers to AHA. This public housing model works, and AHA builds 10 more projects within the next 2 decades. There are many success stories from our first public housing. Notable among them, Truett Cathy, founder and president of the Chick-fil-A restaurant chain, lived in Techwood Homes in the 1930s. Vernon Jordan, lawyer, business executive, and civil rights activist, grew up in University Homes. He described it as a close-knit community with many successful black professionals and residents.
It's the 1960s and 70s, a time of major socioeconomic shifts in Atlanta. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 legislates racial integration of public institutions, and AHA communities are no longer legally required to be racially segregated. The post-war boom brings about widespread urban renewal. As new highways are cut through the city, AHA is relocating families to newer and refurbished buildings, but without the high standards and care of earlier years. The bricks and mortar solution is not addressing the changing face of poverty and the needs of our residents. The housing projects are regarded by government officials as the answer to all of society's problems. They are a place to send people who cannot succeed in mainstream society. They are also the place to move people who are living in the path of urban renewal construction. The prevailing thought is that tenants of public housing don't have the potential to improve their lives. These low expectations turn Atlanta's housing projects into warehouses for poor people. What began as a bold experiment to open the doors into middle class has become a wall separating public housing residents, primarily African Americans, from economic opportunity. All the while, whites and middle-class African Americans are fleeing to the suburbs. By the 1980s, the projects are inhabited almost exclusively by African American families. Children attending schools that were built in the projects are poorly educated. Only a small percentage of the residents have jobs. Most families are single women and children, constantly exposed to crime and society's predators. Crack cocaine is prevalent. Parents don't want their children to play outside. Some families are sleeping on the floor or in the bathtub to protect themselves from the crossfire of gunfights just outside their windows. Hopelessness leads children and young adults into the pits of gangs, drug dealing, stealing, and worse. The projects are prisons of poverty from which families cannot escape. AHA is no longer doing what it was founded to do, provide temporary relief from financial difficulty, and the cycle of poverty and despair is passing from one generation to the next. In 1990, while public housing is failing miserably, by other measures, Atlanta is thriving. The population is swelling to 3 million, and Atlanta is home to a growing number of Fortune 500 headquarters. Then, Atlanta wins the bid to host the 1996 Summer Olympics. This will be Atlanta's chance to show the international community that we are a world-class city. But what if the TV cameras spotlight the dreadful state of Techwood homes, right across the street from the Olympic Village and venues? City leaders do not want the ugly facts reported to the world. Program and property management is so bad that 5,000 of AHA's 14,000 units are uninhabited. Atlanta has the highest rate of violent crime in the U.S. 14% is in public housing, where homicide is 13 times higher, and drug arrests are 14 times higher than the national rate. By then, AHA has been on HUD's list of troubled agencies for more than a decade.
By 1994, only 2 years before the Olympic torch is lit, there is still no solution to the problems plaguing public housing. And at AHA, the executive director abruptly leaves. Shortly afterwards, a HUD audit puts AHA on the brink of receivership. AHA Board of Commissioners Chair Renee Lewis Glover begins a national search for the new leader. The candidates are professionals with experience at other housing authorities, but one after another, they are rejecting the offer from AHA, which faces so many problems. Atlanta Mayor Bill Campbell, HUD, and the AHA board all believe Glover is the best candidate for the job, and she accepts the position. The job calls for new solutions outside the realm of traditional public housing, and Glover's private sector expertise is an asset. As a corporate finance attorney, she is familiar with complex problems and market-based strategies and solutions. Around this time, Congress has just passed the last in a series of federal government programs known as Hope 6. The legislation will help fund revitalization of severely distressed public housing in Atlanta and cities across America. To learn more about the program, Glover attends a meeting in Washington convened by HUD Secretary Henry Cisneros and Senator Barbara Mikulski. They proclaim that public housing is failing and challenge housing authorities to dramatically alter the way they serve their residents. Cisneros says he is willing to toss out the rule books to reform public housing and replace it with a new model. This is a call for leadership, and Glover accepts the challenge. She returns to Atlanta to line up the AHA teams, private sector developers, and community partners who will work together. The solution they find is not a new and improved version of public housing. It is community building with higher expectations based on the belief that people can do better. It will move impoverished people out of isolation into the mainstream of society. Glover says it is about
creating healthy environments, providing the support people need to be successful, and challenging them to fulfill their God-given potential.
AHA's new model for public housing is based on 3 principles: deconcentrating poverty through creating mixed-use, mixed-income communities in partnership with excellent private sector developers so that families no longer have to live in public housing ghettos, leveraging HUD dollars with private investment and private sector know-how, and shifting the focus to community building, not just housing, but neighborhoods with good schools and wholesome recreation. In a remarkably short time, by March 8, 1996, AHA and the Integral Partnership of Atlanta, our private sector development partner, are breaking ground at Centennial Place, America's first master planned, mixed-income, mixed-use community developed with Hope 6 funds and private funds. All of the rental units are built to the same high standard with the same amenities. And in the same buildings, families earning $7,000 a year live next door to households whose annual income exceeds $100,000. The Centennial Place Master Plan includes mixed-income rental communities owned and operated by partnerships managed by affiliates of the Integral Partnership of Atlanta for sale townhomes at various price points, a brand new high-performing elementary school focused on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, a brand new state-of-the-art YMCA developed and operated by the Metropolitan YMCA and Sheltering Arms Early Education and Family Centers, a SunTrust Bank branch, a police precinct, retail stores, and commercial offices. Once Centennial Place is established, it attracts over $1 billion of private investment in the surrounding neighborhood in the heart of Atlanta. AHA has helped transform the landscape of Atlanta and transform the lives of thousands of families who look to brighter futures. While many cities are struggling with the problems associated with traditional public housing, Atlanta moves ahead, demolishing old projects and building new mixed-income, healthy communities with a network of service providers to help residents on their path to self-sufficiency. As the new model proves successful, other housing authorities in the United States and in other parts of the world will follow our lead. They start calling our concept the Atlanta model.
AHA's legacy of leadership is based on building partnerships. It began with Hope and Palmer in the 1930s and continues today as we partner with government, real estate owners and developers, and local organizations that provide human development services. Our legacy of leadership has involved risk-taking. Changing the structure of public housing in Atlanta destroyed inner-city communities ruled by gangs and the underworld of Atlanta. Even some churches and politicians did not want to see a change to the status quo. They didn't want to lose their congregations and constituents. And even though AHA worked with every family to relocate them to better housing, some were afraid of change. When the wrecking ball began to demolish the unhealthy, unsafe projects, AHA and its leaders were met with resistance. Glover, AHA, and the Integral Partnership had the courage to move ahead with the new model for mixed-income housing. They acted on their conviction that it was the best solution for the people we serve. Today, our business transformation is another period of reinvention. To prepare for a future of shrinking government funding and expanding public needs, we're seeking alternative sources of revenue and improving the way we work to be more efficient and cost-effective. We're using new technology tools, new processes, and new organizational structures to provide even better service and serve more people.
Our legacy of leadership and reinvention is based on the vision of our founders. Today, we've expanded that vision to include healthy, mixed-income communities and healthy, self-sufficient families. By keeping the doors of affordable housing open in Atlanta, we're opening doors of opportunity for people at every stage of their lives: youth, adults, the elderly, the disabled, veterans, and the homeless. We're transforming lives. Of all the populations we serve, children represent the majority, and the excellent education offered to each child in AHA-sponsored mixed-use, mixed-income communities is critical to our success. Probably the best example of this success is from just 2 years ago, when 49 high school graduates who all started out in the first class at Centennial Place Elementary School, who all grew up in one of our mixed-income communities, headed to college. These high achievers looked forward to exciting futures at Harvard, Boston University, Georgia Tech, Howard, University of Georgia, Wesleyan, Morehouse, Princeton, the University of Pennsylvania, Spelman, and other colleges and universities. On that great occasion, Renee Glover said,
"Real change comes when the child feels hopeful and excited about their future." These 49 young people are rewriting the history of housing, education, economics, class, dependency, disenfranchisement, isolation, and despair.
We should remember the image of these graduates and their hope for the future as a reminder of what we're working for every day, and build the future of AHA on our most important legacies: the courage to lead in the face of adversity, the wisdom to reinvent when we need to find a better way, and the dedication to a vision that opens many doors to a brighter future.